Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today I wanted to do a discussion video talking about something that I keep seeing brought up, like from time to time. I don't know if it's keep seeing brought up, but something like a topic that gets brought up from time to time that I kind of want to explore with y'all. Now, I don't know why I haven't thought about making this a video already, but yeah, I think it's worth talking about. So let's talk about the idea of having like a role queue or like a lane queue, however you want to think about it. I get asked this every now and then, and I kind of always give like the same answer, but I figured I would go ahead and share those thoughts here on the channel in like a more formal kind of like talking discussion video, and then pass the question to you, because that's what these discussion videos are really for. So what is like a role queue? Well, you know, oftentimes I get asked, like, do you think it would be cool if we could queue for like the role or like the lane or the position that we want to play before going into a game? And I think on like the surface, like that, you know, on paper, doesn't that sound great? Like you would have your role, you would go into the game, and you wouldn't have people, you know, double jungling, you wouldn't have people trolling, you know, essentially, and that sounds great, right? But it's not really that simple, and this is where I kind of have to say, like, I don't know if it would work. The main issue that we have with the role queue, and this is, again, the part that is probably the number one factor why I just don't think it would work or would be worth trying, is because you would have to either determine a role that is meant to be like quote unquote like a flex role, can do anything, and then that person can literally go into the game and play whatever they want, and that still leaves room for people to like interpret what they're doing as like trolling or wrong, or you would have to hard lock a meta. So let me explain. If you did a role queue, what are all the roles? And so, you know, for someone that might be advocating this system, I think you have to really kind of sit down with yourself and actually go deeper into the thought of a role queue and define what the roles are. Well, we could for sure say, at minimum, we could say that jungle is a role, we could say that there's a top laner, and we could say that there's a bot laner, right? So at minimum, 3/5 of the roles are 100% locked in. Well, if you lean more towards North American meta, well then you could say, oh well, maybe tri-queue or like tri-lane is a role, like maybe you lock 3 lanes, maybe you leave it open-ended and you just have 4 people lock lane and it doesn't actually matter where they go, and that's like interpretive to the entire team. Maybe you have a top lane role and 2 bot lane roles with 1 flex role, like I said earlier, where they can roam around the map and like decide where they want to go. Or, you know, so how do you do it? Because I think that another thing to be very clear to make sure that we're on the same page is that you can't really do a role queue based on like battle type. Like you don't really want like a defender, a supporter queue, a speedster queue. You don't want anything like that, because that's really, really specific. But going really specific even into a role queue is a form of meta locking. So, you know, like I said, if Pokemon Unite was to come out with a role queue, I think that it could work, but it would kill, or at least in part, partially kill creativity. Now, here's the reality. In ranked right now, we already don't play 1-1-3, and that's like the majority of the North American meta. So if they did do like a 2-1-2 role queue ranked ladder, I actually don't think it would be that bad. I think that it would naturally kind of like hurt the game a little bit, not like hurt the game like existentially, but I think it would naturally kind of like shift the perception of the game that like 1-1-3 is just wrong because everybody else would be playing 2-1-2, but that's kind of already happening anyways. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If they did a role queue, what would they make the roles? You know, would it be 2-1-2 just for the sake of standardization? Would it just be, you know, you queue as a laner and somebody queues as a jungler? Because really, if you do that, then all you're going to have is like, you're still going to get bad team comps if you do that, because you're just going to have people that queue in and, you know, they're not going to play tank, they're not going to play support, they don't know what lane they're going to go to. It would basically be the exact same thing that we have now. The only difference is junglers would have like a guaranteed role, you know, they would have to wait longer in queue probably for a guaranteed role. And then that's also the other reality of it too. When you introduce role queue into games, it more often than not will just take the role that is perceived or literally the like most popular role, and will make that role have a long queue time. So, you know, jungle being the most contested and also the rarest role. When I call it with the rarest, like, it's just that it's literally 1/5 of the team, where laning is 4/5 of the team. So jungle being a kind of like rare role and a very popular role, it would just make the jungle queue time, you know, a little bit longer than the other positions. So in short, I think if I was to try to kind of like put some finishing touches and thoughts to it, I just don't really see how a role queue could work, or like a position lane queue could work. I think that if there was a sensible way to do it, it would still introduce some problems and would probably not operate as optimally as we might think or might hope. And ultimately, I think the bigger issue when it comes to having systems, not just a system like Roll Queue, but systems surrounding a ranked mode, it pretty much always will come down to the actual rank system, and like say the matchmaking itself is where you want to see the majority of the quality of life improvements and changes and things in order to make the system better. So in short, I don't really think that a Roll Queue would work, but I don't think that a Roll Queue idea is terrible. I think that there are sensible ways to go about it that would force meta, and that could be an okay thing if the majority of the community like agreed on it, essentially, if the player base was super comfortable with that, maybe, and maybe they are. I don't actually know, but for me personally, I think it would be a shame to force like 2-1-2 meta, to force like a defender and a supporter on every team. That could turn into a slippery slope where, you know, defenders are forced as opposed to using something like a Wigglytuff for a tank. It just, you know, it's at the like, it's the argument of like freedom versus like creativity, right? Like if you want or versus like structure. I don't know how to word that really. If you want the structure of a team, then you have to sacrifice freedom for it, right? Like the creativity to create interesting team comps. So friends, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I definitely do appreciate it. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't for future Pokemon Unite content. I try to do these like discussion videos where we talk about things and kind of bounce ideas off each other, but I would love to know. So as always, be sure to be kind to one another. Tell somebody you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.